I have to remind you to send me your email. Okay. Zok the Heilige Gemara. We are at the bottom of Daf Tesvav on the base. We were discussing yesterday the Sefer Zachronos. Achashverosh wasn't able to sleep because he was afraid people were conspiring and plotting against him, and he had lost the loyalty of his people to divulge any type of problem because maybe someone put his neck out for him in the past and was not rewarded. So it says in the pasuk, "Vayomer lahavi yasef hazachronis divrei hayamim, v'yu nekroyim." They should be read. V'yu nekroyim. They should be read. Malamed, you see from here, shenekron me'alem. The pages read themselves. By Yimatzei Kasser, they found it being written. Frank the Gemara, what do you mean they found it being written? This was written many years ago. Kasav mibayla. So what is happening over here? Zok Gemara Malamed, now turning over onto the Zayin at Aleph. Malamed sheshimshi moichik. Shimshi was erasing what was written. The Gavriel Hamalach was writing. Who is this Shimshi fellow? Rashi tells us that Shimshi, on the top of the Omer, says Sofer Hamelach, on the top of Zayin at Aleph. Shimshi was a Sofer of the king. There are those who even say that he was the son of Haman. And Soini Yisrael, he hated the Jews. He was already there from previous administrations. He was a swamp character that was there from previous generations. And he was trying to conceal the contribution that Mordechai made. So Amar Basi, there are those who learn, Rashi doesn't say this, but there are those who learn that when Shimshi originally recorded it, he recorded it that Haman did the good deed, not that Achashverosh did the good deed. So Gavriel had to instantly edit what was going on.
I think it's pronounced Shimshai.
Shimshai?
All the will be very upset that you called the Haman's son Shimshi.
I was thinking of Mordechai Manilov's cousin, Shimshi Stern.
And Benzi has a son, Shimshi.
That's a lot of people. Okay, we'll call him Shimshai. Shimshai, Moichik, the Gavriel cousin. Amar Basi, Dorish Rab Shila Ish Kfar Tamarta. There were many Rab Shilas. This Rab Shila was known for his Agadata, and he was from Kfar Tamarta. And he says as follows: Umak Sav Shalamata, Shalaschusin Shal Yisrael, Eino Nimchak, Madich, Iksav that's written Lamata cannot be Nimchak. Ksav Shalamayla, Iksav that's written in heavens, like also again, surely it cannot be wiped out. So the Balt Gavriel wrote it Lamaila that it was a schus for Mordechai. Surely it cannot be wiped out down here. So what did the advisors of Achashverosh say when he asked, what did we do with what did we do for him? So the pasuk says, Lo nasi imoy davar. So the question is, it's a little bit unusual what they answered, because they didn't really answer him tzimzach. If you look at the pasuk, it is Ma Nasa Yikar Ugdula LeMordechai Alzeh. So they should have said, Lo Nasa Imo Yikar Ugdula. Right? He asked, what Yikar Ugdula did we do? They should have answered, they didn't do Yikar Ugdula. They answered a little bit unusual, Lo Nasa Imo Davar. So the Gemara is learning that they weren't addressing what was done to him, they're addressing what should be done to him. And they tell him, this is not such an important taiva. No need to do anything for him because of this deed. Amarova, loy mipnei she'haven es Mordechai. The positive shot is they said that they didn't do anything for Mordechai yet, which is really helping Mordechai because they're suggesting that Mordechai should deserve some type of reward at this point. But they didn't like it. There was no lost love over there. They didn't like the Jew. But the reason why they wanted to at least give Mordechai some type of honor was Ela b'pnei she'soinin es Haman. They hated Haman. So they knew it would kill Haman if Mordechai would get some recognition. So they had to sort of make a compromise between their two conflicting horrible emotions. One is to hate the Jew, one is to hate Haman. But they hated Haman a little more than they hated the Jew. So they figured let's get the Jews some benefit. Then it says later on in the Megillah, it says Vayomer Hamelach mi b'chotzer, v'Haman ba l'chatzar beis Hamelach achitoyna leimer lamelach. What was the person of Haman coming in the middle of the night to speak to the king? Lit lois es Mordechai al eitz asher heichen loy, that he prepared for it. We learned loy heichen. It was really prepared for Haman himself. How do you see that from this word? Asher heichen loy. So the Mefarshim tell us that the lashon hachana is always used for a mitzvah, like Utfayach Tevach v'Hachem, when Yosef was shechting on behalf of his brothers. The word achana is normally used for a mitzvah. So the question is, what type of mitzvah is Haman doing here? The Torah says loy heichen. He himself was personally involved in the mitzvah of destroying Haman. Vasei came leMordechai, right? Kach it's a sus, it's a levush, it's a sus. Kashesh devarto. Vasei came leMordechai Yehuda Yosef Yishar Melech lo yapel mimenu. What's the pasuk? Lo yapel, lo yapel davar mikol asher dibarto. So what happened over here? Omer lei. So when he told Mordechai, when he told Haman, I want you to do this for Mordechai. So Haman had to wissen gemacht. Man Mordechai, who's Mordechai? Which I don't know who you're talking about, King. Amalei Mordechai Yehudi. Amalei Tuva Mordechai Ikab Yudah. You know how many children are named Mordechai amongst the Jews? which is actually a little bit schwer on what David Zolti said. Because if Mordechai was merely like a title, maybe there were many prestigious Jews. Maybe that's what it means. There are many prestigious Jews amongst our people here. Omer lei, so Chashresh had to get more specific. Hayoshev b'shar Melech. So that was very clear which Mordechai he meant, the sworn enemy of Haman and actually the owner of Haman. Omer lei, so Haman said, you don't have to give him such a big covered trap and traipse him around the whole city on this beautiful horse. It's enough. Maybe either give him a city, let him have the exclusive taxes of that city. That was one shot. Other shot of the Rishonim is it's enough if we just take him around just one little area. Inami bechad nahar, or give him a river. Omer lei, you know what? That's a good idea. Hanami havlei, give him that as well. Al taper dover mikol asher divarta. I don't want you to be missing anything. There are those who learned that Haman was saying, Mordechai is a poor Jew. It's not respectful to take a schlepper schnorrer and walk him around in the begodim and on the sus of the king. So Ashresh has no problem. Enrich him and then schlep him around. What happened? He had to go and tell Mordechai that we're going on this trip. Ozal Ashkechei, the Yosy Rabbanan coming. He saw when he encountered Mordechai, what was Mordechai doing? He was sitting and teaching the Talmidim Torah. Umachvalahu Hilchas Kamitza Rabbanan. He was teaching them the Hilchas Kamitza with his hands, how you do a Kamitza. Even the Chazyu Mordechai, the Apik Lekavlei, the Susei Meched Biyadei, when Mordechai saw from a distance that Haman was approaching with a horse, right away mirsis, because a guy never comes to a Jew with good intentions. Clearly, something sinister is going on here. He told the Talmidim, "Hi Rishia lemikdal nafshi kasi." Surely he's coming to kill me. Why should you get killed? He'll probably kill us all if we're here together. Better zilu mekamei, leave, run away, so that you shouldn't have to get dragged into my problems. You shouldn't get burnt by his call. But he shaita nisatif Mordechai. So at that point, Mordechai put his talus around his body. He was davening for his life. Also, Haman came and sat in front of them. And the Mefarshim tells us what is the significance of the fact that at that time Mordechai was learning with his Talmidim halachas of Kmitza. The reason is because the Jews got a little caught up in the Sudas HaChashverosh and they wanted more and more. And Kmitza shows that you don't have to take much. Just be very constrained, be very simple, and don't look for the luxuries. Don't look to enjoy these things. Just keep your life simple. That was the message he was trying to send. Anyway, also come Haman the Yosef Lake Kamayu. He sat there, the Oirich, and he had to wait there for a while at the Solak Mordechai until Mordechai finished davening. Amalahu, he asked Mordechai, "What are you busy with? Maya Skisu, what are you busy with?" Amr lay. So Haman told back to Haman. Haman wanted to know what's land there. It's like when you say which land there. So Haman wants to know which land there. This man Beis Hamikdash Kayim, when the Beis Hamikdash was still up. Haman, you low life that you convinced Achashverosh to stop us from rebuilding it, but we still believe it's going to be rebuilt and it's still very real to us, so we're still learning about it. Man the Menadev Mincha, if someone would donate a Mincha, Ma'aseh Malik comes to the Sultan, he would bring a handful of soilus, u'mischaperle, and it will be mechaper. So don't think, Haman, that because we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, we have no hope. Hashem takes every little gesture from us and helps us with it.
If that was the case, that Mordechai is demonstrating his belief, then why didn't he say Bizman Shabbat Samigdash Tayakai? He should have said Bizman Shabbat Samigdash Yiyakai.
Because he was trying to tell Haman a message that even when everything was in its glory, Hashem wasn't looking for big things. Hashem was happy with a little gesture. So that gesture, we still give to Rebbeinu Shalom now. Amar Lahu, Asa Mali Kumse Kimcha Ditchu, your small, humble, little presentation of Kemach is stronger, V'dochi Asara Alpha Kikrikas B'didi. And it's going to undo and neutralize the huge money that I offered to Achashverosh. And Tosha says right over here something fascinating. Tosha the Shamati I heard, Asara Alpha Kikr Kesef Oilin Chatzi Shekel L'Cholechad Yisrael. It actually works out, if you do the numbers, to a half a shekel for each person. So Yisheish Me'os Elav Kashayotzu Mitzrayim. There were 600,000 people when they went out of Mitzrayim. Now it's interesting that Tosfos brings this up over here and not where Tosfos discussed that our shkolim are connected them, and he brings a teretz to this kasha, but I didn't understand the teretz why it was bedafka over here when we already talk about the kemach undoing what the shkolim did.
I don't know what the big deal is. I would much rather have $5 that my father gave me than $100,000 that Moshe Rapin showed me.
I hear.
You know, he never gave the money.
I hear, but he wanted to.
Yeah, but he never gave.
Right. The Zok Amalei. So Mordechai told him, Russia, what you are. Evet Shekanin Nachosim, you're talking about your great contribution that you made. You weren't giving him your money, you were giving Achashverosh my money. Evet Shekanin Nachosim. Evet Lemi, Unechosim Lemi. The Evet belongs to me, and the Nechosim belong to me. So you're not giving your own, you're giving his. Amalei. So he says, you know what? I got a job to do, Mordechai. I can't wrestle with you in Lumdus. Kum levoish hani mane. Do me a favor. I got a job to do. Let's get over it. Let's get this painful period of my life over with. Put on these begadim, and get on to this horse. The boy lach malka, because that's what the king wants.
Was there any practical? Did the Lord discuss about any practical value that Mordechai got from this? It's a pretty useless thing.
From Mordechai's perspective, yeah, but you're right. But for a goy, it was great. That's like getting the right to throw out the first pitch at a baseball game. It wouldn't do anything for you or me, but there are people who think it's a great opportunity.
So in Haman and Achashverosh's mind, they would.
And Achashverosh was the one. Achashverosh and Haman were the ones who were describing this great thing. This is what Haman is, the ultimate of what Haman wanted. So Zoktim Amalei. I'm an El to the Yid. I'm fasting already 3 days. How am I supposed to climb on the horse? No, I'm sorry. I jumped ahead of myself. He says, I'm sitting here in sackcloth. Is it appropriate that someone sitting in sackcloth with long hair should dress in the king's clothing? I have to go to a bathhouse and I have to wash myself. The Eshkalamaj, and I got to take a haircut. The Lav Orich Ira, Lishtamusha B'mani de Malka. It's not appropriate to dress in the king's clothing when I'm not properly groomed. Now, Esther wanted Haman to have to do this work by himself. So Shadra Esther Asartinu Luchulu Bei Bani Uluchulu Umne. She closed she didn't close, but she made all of the employees of all of the what she really did was she introduced serb. And because of that, all of the people who worked in the bathhouses and all the barbers went on vacation because they figured, why should we work? We can just enjoy our serve. But the Meforshim tell us that Esther didn't have authority to control the city. So they say that it was the Shem. I think the Rif says that she said certain shemus that made that the attendants in the bathhouse and the barbers were not able to come to work that day. So Haman is in a tight spot. He's got to get the job done. So Haman himself had to become the bath attendant. He had to wash him. So imagine I had an English friend who told me that he was like a yeke. He never went to the mikveh. And he says, one Shabbos, one Arab Shabbos, I said, I'll go to the mikveh. My friends were bugging me. So I go into the mikveh Arab Shabbos, and there's this El Tabid lying there on the bench, and he's kracheting, and he tells me, Ingeman, yeah, give me that krach. And he tells me, I fled, and I never came back. So here, Haman had the kratz, he had to be the bath attendant. And he also had to give him a haircut. There was no barber there. So he himself had to go home, and he dusted off his haircut kit that he had from the time when he still was a barber, and he had to give Mordechai a haircut because shakal b'masya. So here Haman, who is on top of the world, is now a bathhouse attendant serving up towels and soaps, and operating the mikveh heater and giving haircuts. But while he was doing this work and he was giving Mordechai a tzaddik a haircut, in Gedvesnach, he gave him a krech. So instead of the old man saying, I'm going to give him a krech, give him a krech, and Haman, the barber said, oh, yeah, krech, right? So Mordechai asked him, look alive, look excited, what's the problem? Am I coming snachas? Who's krechetsty? Get a chashokel, get my haircut done, no krechets. Omer lei. So Haman says, could you imagine? I was at the top of the world. I was the most choshev, closest advisor to the king. Now he's becoming a bathhouse attendant, a sapper, and a barber. Haman told him, Russia, what you are. That's right. You should be happy. This is just like the good old days. Haman, you should be celebrating. This is just like the good old days when you were the barber. You were a barber there for a while. So just you're going back to your roots. What's the problem?
Also, if you told him it could always get worse.
It was about that, right? Dr. Watana, we learned Haman Saper Shofar Kartumaya. He was the official barber of the village of Kartum. You know how long his career was? Esher Mishtayim Shona. He was a 22-year career barber. So after he gave Mordechai a haircut, Lefshinu Lamane, he got Mordechai dressed with the big mountains. Amalei Sakvarachav, get up on the horse. Amalei Mordechai said, I'm sorry, Lo Yachilna, I'm not able to, I don't have the strength to climb up on this horse. The Kchisha Chiloi Mimei Tanisa. Don't you realize I've been fasting the last couple of days? I'm not able to get up. Maybe you can get me a stool. There's no stools around. Well, maybe you could be my stool. So Haman had to get Haman, not only did Haman become a stool, we're soon going to see that he got a stool sample as well. But in the meantime, Haman had to bend over and become a stool. Gochin v'solik.
What happened? Esther amalgamate Sheamus and all of the stools disappeared?
I guess there was no stool right there, right at the mikveh. So Gochin v'solik, he had to bend down, and therefore Mordechai climbed up upon Haman as used him as a step stool. Kisolik, when he climbed up on Haman, but he didn't give him a shtois in the uche. He gave him a good kick while he's on him. Omer le, Haman says, come on. Mordechai tzaddik, loiksiv l'chu bin tfoilo yivchal tismach. You're right, you got me now, I'm down. But by you Jews, there's this concept, Tzedem ken eleven, Tzedem Haman was a big tavachuchim. When it's good for him, he knew the psukim that he needed, you know. You know, every politician knows the couple of words, you know, shalom and Shabbos and Kiddush. So he knew the psukim that he needed to know. Omer le, so Mordechai told him, Hanimili be Yisrael. That only applies to the Yidden. For you, the goy, we're going to be high above you. I didn't the Rebbeinu Shalom say like Abba Mitzrayim, my Tziyad Tovim Bayam, Batam Shira. So the Meforshim answer that Haman was a sworn enemy that wanted to destroy Klal Yisrael. For him, there's no concept of B'nfala Yifcha Al Tisma.
Who said that? Haman said that, or the Gemara said that?
What?
That last Akasha on Mordechai's behavior, that you're not supposed to.
Haman said B'nfala Yifcha Al Tisma, and Mordechai answered V'atal B'Mishem Tidrach. So I asked from the Persian, what about Mitzrayim? So the answer, Mitzrayim wasn't as a sworn enemy to Klal Yisrael as Haman was. But you could have fun of Kachai Yosy Ish, Asher Melech Havet Bikarai, Ki Havanochet Va'azal, Bishvila de Haman, when they were walking by Haman's house, Chazisa Barte, his daughter saw the Kaima Igra. She was on the roof of the house because she was part of the people who were cheering this great parade because Mordechai was leading a horse that her father Haman was sitting on. So she assumed by the Maskakame Mordechai. But the problem is, why would she think that? Did she not recognize her father's voice of Kachai Yosy Ish? So the Mefarshim tell us that not only was Mordechai riding on the horse, the person leading the horse also got hoarse from all of his screaming, Kachai Yosy Ish. So she no longer recognized his voice. And he wasn't very proud of what he was doing, so he was looking down, and therefore, and Mordechai himself was very uncomfortable with this type of covet. So they were both not sticking their heads up all proud, they were both sort of concealing their identity. They weren't flashing. So therefore, she was able to make that mistake. And they had indoor plumbing, because she didn't have to go out to the outhouse. They had on the second floor, they had a bathroom. Shokla tzitza, the Vesa Kisei, she took the receptacle of the Vesa Kisei, Vishadisa Aresha Dohavua, and she threw it down on the head of her father, thinking that it was Mordechai. Dali Einai, all of a sudden went splat. Dali Einai, he looked up, so she lifted up her eyes, or he lifted up her eyes, he lifted up his eyes, so she was able to see his face. And she realized that she just gave him a stool sample. Not, he was looking for a stool before, he just got himself a stool, right? So Nafla me'igra la'ara, when she saw what she did to her father, she jumped off the roof. I guess she knew what her father was going to do to her when he got home. And she died. And that's what stated in Pasuk, Yashav Mordechai al Shar Melech. Now this is not what's negaya to what we're trying to prove, but it's the beginning of the Pasuk that we're quoting to help us understand what happened with Haman. So the Gemara diverts a moment to understand the Pasuk. What does it mean Mordechai went back to the Shar Melech? He was never in the Shar Melech. When they found him, when Haman found him, he was sitting and learning with his Talmidim. He wasn't by Shar Melech. It means he went back. Sure, things seem to be going good, but he went right back to his fasting. You know why? Because even though Mordechai saw that the tide was turning, but until he knows that there's a perfect Yeshua, he had to continue fasting. The Haman nitchav al beisai, and Haman was rushed to his home. Avel v'chafui rosh, or as Pesach Boom says, Avel v'chafui rosh, or is that Yeshua want to call? So why is Avel v'chafui Avel al bitai v'chafui rosh al she'ir aloi, on the wonderful thing that happened to him, on the fact that he got a stool sample.
I have just a side question. Which multi-billionaire has a house that abuts the main road? Or any road for that matter?
It actually says shvil. It says the shvil of his house, right? Is that the Lashon?
No, my problem is that-
She went into a side street. He had to go up and down every little street.
Right.
So it wasn't a
She
main road.
took a bucket from her house and dumped it down.
That's right.
So the house was abutting
Every house
the
abuts the
road.
street. Every house
abuts
abuts
the street.
Yeah. It's not like nowadays where they're set in.
How do you know that?
When you go into old cities.
Billionaire.
When you go into old cities, you always see everything. Every house is right on the street. You wonder why it didn't have like a country estate.
He probably is. I don't know. Maybe that-
I hear. Haman told Zeres Ishtai what was going on. It says that they liked him, but and they're called Chacham. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan said, even a guy could be called a Chacham if he says something smart. And what do they say? If Mordechai was from some of the other Shvatim, you might be able to get out from under this mess. If he's from one of these four Shvatim, then you're going to be in trouble. Why are these four Shvatim unique? His hands will be on the neck of his enemy, which meaning once he's after him, he's done. And in the other Shvatim, so they told him, now you're in trouble. You're now going to fall down. And the Mepharshim tell us that what they were trying to tell him was run away. They weren't just trying to tell him bad news. They're giving him an eitzah. They're chachamim. They said, run, bail, get out of here. The double lashon lama amrloi umazu meshula offer. This nation is compared to sand, and we're also compared to the chavim. Kishen Jordan, when they're going down, they're down all the way. Jordan ad offer. When they're going up, they're going up to the stars. And guess what? They're on the way up now. So he was about to pack up to run away to make his escape because he knew that his goose was cooked. But as he's about to leave, who's there? The Sarisei Melech. And they rushed to get him to the Suda of Esther. They brought him in a rush. He wasn't ready. He didn't have a chance to clean himself up. Rashi says he still had a stool sample on him and he couldn't get it off. Then Esther told Achashverosh, I'm in big trouble. Why am I in big trouble? Shaitan Pasuk, Kinim Karnu, Ani, Va'ami, Lahashmed, Lareg, Abed, because this lowlife doesn't give two hoots how much he's damaging your kingdom by destroying the Jews. He doesn't give two hoots about your welfare. She told Achashverosh, this lowlife, this Grinch, he doesn't give two hoots to the welfare of the king, and he doesn't care how much the economy is going to be damaged by wiping out the Jews. Okay, and I'll prove it to you. Esther said that he doesn't give two hoots about the king. First, it's a chechepet with your first wife, and he caused her to get killed. It was his eitzah. Now he's starting up with your second wife, and he wants to kill me. So she really got him good. Why did it say Vayomer twice? Think about what a Lola Achashverosh was. This is his wife, who he's intimate with. But in public, he wouldn't talk to her. You know why? Because it was still unknown who she was. And maybe she's not of royal blood. And I will not directly speak to anybody who's not of royal blood. I'll do mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim with them at night when no one's looking. But in public, I won't speak to them. So Betchila Yiditurgim, at first when he spoke to her, not knowing yet who she was, he wouldn't speak to her directly. Didn't
he say at Chatzi Hamalchus? Didn't he say to
but
her?
He still didn't speak to her directly. He was only speaking to her through an intermediary.
Someone who he's offering in public. This was a public offering.
What was the public offering?
That at Chatzi Hamalchus.
Yeah, it could be, but he didn't speak to her directly. He didn't speak to her directly.
He wouldn't. He would offer her publicly half the malchus, but he wouldn't speak to her directly. That doesn't compute.
I hear. But eventually, when you said with the Shol Casino, I am from royalty. Miyad vayomer le'Esther Hamalchus. Listen, he did worse. He slept with her, right? And it didn't bother him. But I guess that was people didn't see, but they knew she was his queen. So he was a man of paradoxes.
I heard also somebody when they said that when the Gemara compared us to the sand, somebody also said that the sand is something that everybody stands on, but eventually the sand covers everything.
Very good, very good. So you can stand on us for a certain time, but eventually we're going to get you. Very good. Who says that? Oh, beautiful. But timer Esther. So what did Esther say? Ish sar v'oyev hama nara azeh. Omar Belazar, when she said Ish sar v'oyev, she was mechava klape Achashverosh. She was pointing at Achashverosh. Uvomalach v'sofa yada klape him, and v'sota yada klape him, and the malach pushed her hand to point towards him. So the Mepharshim asked, what was Esther thinking? She's trying to get the king to save her. Why in the world would she be attacking the king? So the Mepharshim say she wasn't trying to blame Achashverosh. She was trying to say, Ish tsar v'oyev, this man is trying to hurt you. Ish tsar v'oyev, he's ruining you. So she wasn't pointing to him. She wasn't pointing to Achashverosh an accusing finger. She was pointing to Achashverosh that you are the one, you're the victim, you're the one who he's trying to hurt. But being that it could have very easily being misunderstood by Achashverosh as an accusation, the Malachim quickly pushed her hand away. He got up, he was angry, and then he went out to his garden, and then he came back from the garden. We're going to say that when he went out to the Bisan to calm down, it didn't work. He was just as angry when he came back as he was when he left. Why? Why? Because when he went out into his garden, the Ashkach Lamalachei Ashoris, the Idmilek Gavre, Malachim came and dressed up like arborists. They call Akri Lilani the Bustani. They were uprooting and chopping down the beautiful trees of his orchards. He told them, what are you doing? Amrulay, what do you mean? The Paktin on Haman. Haman told us to cut down these trees. I guess he needs them to hang people with. Also, they say, and then after he's so angry about Haman destroying his orchard, he came back inside, and guess what? Haman noifel alamita. He was falling. Not he fell. He was falling on the mita. What does that mean? Noifel nofal mi bayla. He fell on the bed. Omar belazim alamid sheba malach v'ipilu aleh. There was a malach that kept on pushing him on Esther, so it looked like he was trying to attack Esther. Omar, he said, "Vaimi beisa, woe is to what's going on in my house. Haman's trying to attack my wife. Vaimi bra, and Haman's trying to attack my garden. He's everywhere." Oh, then comes Chavoina into the scene. Chavoina was no tzaddik. Russia. Chavoina was also Russia. He was also into that, into the Haman's thing. Except when he saw things collapsing, he quickly changed sides. When he saw that it wasn't working out so good, Miyad Baruch, he bailed quickly. Some loyal guy he was. Behind the chsiv, yeah. Behind the chsiv, vayashlech olav v'lo yachmoil miyadoi b'royach yivrach. The Rebbeinu Shalom, when he brings things down and he makes it bad for the Rasha, b'royach yivrach, all of his friends who are helping him are going to run and scramble not to help him. That's what it says in the Likutei Rashi. V'yashlech olav hamashlich olav ra v'lo yachmoil miyadash Rasha u'makasoi u'mikoichem u'mkoimoy. When he gets knocked down from his place, from his high place, when things are going well, the people who are working with him and helping him, he's going to pack out and abandon the White House when the White House is going down.
Somebody who went to Achashverosh's palace and wrote a book said that when Chavorna said by Yomer Hine Ho'etz, right? When Chavorna said that Hine Ho'etz, the eight Haman wanted to be 50 amas high, and he showed that the way the palace was built on a plateau, and Haman's house was down in the city, which was lower. And the reason why he wanted it 50 amas high is because when he stood on the palace, 50 amas height, they would be able to say, and that's why when the Vilna Gaon says that the word Hine is that he was able to point at that eight, and that's why it had to be 50 amas high.
Wow, unbelievable. The Hamas Hamelach Shechacha Shtei Shchichos Halalu Lama. What is the two shchichos? Tomorrow Achas Shal Malchus Shal Olam. The Melech Olam. The Goyin Shloim was Moichelas for Achas Achashverosh. V'Amila Achas Shal Esther v'Achas Shal Vashti. Or means the anger that Achashverosh had because Esther was threatened, and the anger that Achashverosh had because Vashti was killed. Gewaltig. Okay. Zog to Gemara weiter. After Haman was killed, things calmed down. Zog to Gemara, the Chulam Nasan leish Chalifa Smolos ulu Binyamin Nasan Chamish Chalifas. Yosef gave Binyamin 5 sets of clothing, 5 times what he gave the brothers. Frek to Gemara, how could Yosef do something like that? After Dovesh and Star by Yosef Tzaddik, Yosef's all of his problems started because of the Ksonis Pasim, because of the fact that his father showed a little bit favoritism. So now he's going to start this cycle all over again. Because of the weight of 2 shloim of beautiful wool that Yaakov gave to Yosef over and above the other brothers, meaning the Ksonis Pasim, So why would Yosef do that? He was just trying to give him a remez. And the Mepharshim tell us, in fact, that the value of the 5 suits were the same value as the one suit that he bought for the other brothers. So the other brothers, maybe he bought their suits in Barney, and the suits that he bought for Binyamin, he bought on AliExpress. So all 5 suits that he gave Binyamin were worth no more than the suit that he gave to each of the brothers. So in fact, there wouldn't have been a jealousy there at all. It was all the same value. But why did he give Binyamin 5 suits? Because eventually Binyamin is going to have an Einukol by the name of Mordechai, who's going to go out with 5 big malchus. Nemar or Mordechai Yotza Bilvush Malchus. And let's see the pasuk inside. Bilvush Malchus. So Tcheles V'chur V'aterazov Gedoyla V'sachritz Butzvar Gomen. There's Malchus, Tcheles, Chur, Aterazov Gedoyla, and Tachris Kutzvar Gomen. Those were the 5 begodim that he went out with, and that was the signal that Yosef was sending.
That was so important for Yosef to do.
I guess so. Vayiboy al Savare Binyamin. He fell on the necks of Binyamin. So there are those who are going to this next line, there are those who aren't. Comments of Havila Binyamin. Binyamin had 2 necks. Amar Belazar, Bacha al Shnei Mikdashim, Sasidim Liyos Bechalka Shal Binyamin. He cried about the 2 Batei Mikdash that were going to be in the Chelik of Binyamin. Vasidin lecharev, and they're eventually going to become charev. Binyamin bachal tzavarav, and Binyamin cried on Yosef's neck, which is bachal mishkan shiloi shasad liyos bechal kol sheyosef basad lecharev. V'hinei nechem roy Yosef ein yachi Binyamin. Amar Belazar Amalem kishem she'ein belibi al Binyamin achi. Just like I have nothing against, I have no score to settle with Binyamin shlehay b'mechirasi. Kach ein belibi alechem. Don't worry, I have no problem with you. You don't have to worry about me seeking retribution. Like I'm talking to you. Kafi kain libi. What he meant to say is, when I'm the same way I'm telling this to you, I'm sincere in my heart that I have no score to settle with you. So what did Yosef say to his father? He sent the best of Mitzrayim to his father. What is the best of Mitzrayim has to offer? He sent him old wine. Old people like wine. The Mepharshim have many reasons why old people like wine. A is because it makes you warm, and old people are cold. B is because wine that's old, its shmorim have sunk down to the bottom. So too, older people already know what's important to focus on and what it could let go. And the third reason is because wine becomes better as it ages. Old people like to think the same. His brothers fell in front of him. Yosef's brothers. Now that his brothers are begging and bowing down to him, every dog has its day. It means if a fox at the right time, everyone bows down to it. In fact, Tala, why would you refer to Yosef as someone who's secondary to his brothers? That even he has his time. Why would you say Yosef is any less than his brothers? It's not referring to his brothers, rather it's referring to what his father did. It says, his father bowed down to him. There at Talabik Nasagilay, because even though he's less than his father, but at certain times he had a certain advantage. This is what Yosef told his brothers not to worry. He told them things that they'll believe, that they'll accept. What did he say? Just like 10 nares can't, 10 nares couldn't put out 1 nare, meaning if all 10 of you couldn't undo me, how do you think I'll be able to hurt you? You don't have to worry, I won't be able to hurt you. Ira is Torah. Because otherwise Goyim have Ira too. So it's only Yehudim had. What Ira did the Yehudim have that the Goyim didn't? Torah. Simcha zayomtiv. V'chein oimer v'samachta b'chagecha. Sos an zumila. V'chein oimer sos an noichi alim rasecha. V'kar elu tefillin. V'chein oimer v'roch chol amei oretz kishem Hashem nikra alecha. V'yiru mimeka. Respect. Tanya Belazar God Oimer. Elu tefillin shal b'rosh. It's referring to tefillin shal b'rosh because that's what's revealed to everybody. That's exposed. It's up on your head. Beth Pashandosa. It goes through the Seres Pnei Haman that we say in the Shema Achas. Seres Pnei Haman Amar Vadam B'Dem Yafai. Seres Pnei Haman Vaseres. So the actual 10 names and the word after that, Aseres, right? Tzorech lememrinu v'neshima achas. You have to say them in one breath. My timer. Kulu ba'adadodi nafku nishmazu. They all died at the same time. There's a machlokes in the Kronim if the tzibur is supposed to say it along with the Baal Tefillah. Armanik is to say it. There are people who are not supposed to say it. But the Ragacher says a beautiful word. He said, Avada, you have to say it. You know why? Because sure, Shamea Ka'ina, when you hear the Balkara lane in the Megilla, you're Yosy. You can be Yosy the Kriya. You can't be Yosy in the Shema Achas. So therefore, you have to do that by yourself because you cannot be Yosy in the Shema Achas. And that's why by Duchening also, the Brisker Rav says, by Duchening, why can't only one coin say the bracha and all the coin on them should be Shomei coin? The teretz because they have to say it for Koil Rum. When you hear someone else say it, it can be Shomei coin, like you said it. Koil Rum could only be done by yourself.
I have another answer. They have to be able to say that Ahava.
Right.
You can't say a main with the thing.
Okay, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so the Vav of Vaizos is a long Vav. You got to make it long. You know why? Kimurdaya delivers. Like the steering board, you have a rudder, like the rudder of a ship that's going down a river. My timer, why is that? Kulu bechad zechifa as tekifa. Because they were all on one big tree that they were on. Again, the second time we ran into Reb Shila Ish Kfar Tamarasa today. All the shiras, like by Yosy, there's blank space, and then there's ksav, and it's like bricks where they're offset. The blank space on one line is offset from the blank space on the other line, so that it should be like building a wall in a sturdy fashion, not just piling the blocks one on top of the other. Chutz mishirazu, except for when we're listing off Aseres Pnei Haman, they're lined up in a row right on top of each other. Because that's not a good way, it's not a sturdy way to build. And when the Malchik Knan are listed off at the end of Yeshua, the kingdoms that Yeshua conquered, those are Ariach al Gaberiach al Levena. All the words are piled on top of each other, and then the empty space. So their mapala, they should never be able to recover from it. Why? Because that's not a sturdy way to build. The Shushan Abira, he started off with a stern message. Look at what you did. You destroyed my country. The Shushan Abira, Hargla Yehudim. And then, a second later, he was a schizophrenic. He says, what else can I do for you? What was the sudden change of attitude that Achashverosh had mid-sentence? When he came down hard on Esther, he got a rap in the mouth. And he realized, you know what? I better behave myself. Then later on, it says, this is already much later after Yisrael defended himself. She went back to the king and she said, Amar, Ima Sefer. With the Sefer, we should be able to be Mekayim the Divra at Tzoymos. The problem is, if Esther's talking, Amar, Amrami Boile, she addressed the king. It should be Lashon Nekeva. Amar B'yochanan, and there are those who take out the next two words, Yoymar B'peh, Mashakasa B'Sefer. She wanted that Achashverosh should decree that every year they should read the Megillah and say over B'peh Molei the story of what was there. It has to be a sefer. You learn from here that it needs sirtut just like a Torah. You have to make the lines before. Maimer Esther kiyam, Maimer Esther in divrei atzoymos loy. Are we saying that only the Maimer Esther, but not the tzoymos that we fast every year? Divrei atzoymos u Maimer Esther kiyam. Everything was Makuyim from year to year, side of Tanya Esther and side the Simcha, the Mishnah afterwards, Hapor Mela. Ki Mordechai Yehudi Mishnah Lamelech HaChashverosh, the Godel Yehudim, V'rotzi L'roi V'echav. So it doesn't say V'rotzi L'echav or L'kol Echav, L'roi V'echav, V'loi L'kol Echav. Meaning, Mordechai had people who didn't like him. Mordechai people didn't respect him. What happened? Melamed Shapir Shimon Mikdash Sanhedrin. Part of the Sanhedrin abandoned him. They weren't his Hasidim anymore. Why? Because he got too busy with communal affairs. He could no longer focus full time on Torah. Amr Yosef, Gadol Talmud Torah Yosef Matzalos Kefashos. Talmud Torah is greater than saving lives. The Mikor Choshev Leila Mordechai Basar Dalet. Originally, before the story of Purim, where Mordechai was only Isaac in Talmud Torah, and he was not Isaac in Hatalas Nefashos. He was listed as the number 5 in the Bezin. And after the story of the Megillah, once he already got involved in Hatalas Nefashos, he was only listed off as number 6. Yeshua, Nehemiah, Syria, Rala, right? Those are 4, and then Mordechai Bilshan. So you see, he was number 5. Yeshua, Nehemiah, Ezra, Ramya, Nachmani, and then Mordechai Bilshan. So you see, his stature dropped because he was no longer full-time in learning. He was busy with Inyonei Klal.
Bilshan was his last name.
Bilshan, we learned, means that he knew all 70 Lashotas. It was a nickname. Yeah, that's right. That's also true. Amar Rav Yitem Shmuel by Marsa Godel Talmud Torah Yosy ben Beis Hamikdash. Talmud Torah is even greater than building the Beis Hamikdash. Shekolzman sheborach ben Ariya kain. As long as Baruch ben Ariya was there teaching Torah to Ezra in the Golus in Bavel, lahinichai Ezra ba'olah. Ezra did not abandon his Rebbe to go up to Eretz Yisrael. Rather, he stayed to learn Torah. Why? Because he says, even though I have a mission to go rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, nevertheless, as long as I'm learning Torah by my Rebbe, I'm not leaving. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Bar Shmuel, Bar Marsha, Gadol, Talmud Torah, Yosy ben Kibarav. Torah is even greater than Kibarav. Shekol Oisen Shanim Shal Yaakov Avinu Bebeis Ever Loy Nenash. We're going to learn tomorrow that Yaakov Avinu was Nenash for being away from his parents so long, but the 14 years that he was learning Torah, those years he was not punished for. And we'll cover that tomorrow.
I was a 10-year-old when I came home to my dad and I said to my father, "God, my Rebbe says that I have to have